Mohammed Yunus is now going to be, the chief advisor, as it were, to the interim government. Arfatul Islam, how is that likely to play out? Here is a man who's been a Nobel laureate on the one hand. On the other hand, there have been serious corruption charges against him as well. He is still very greatly respected. But the question is, who respects him? What about the Jamaat? Would they, for example, respect him? What about extremist elements in Bangladesh? Would they possibly respect him? Does he have that force to actually get people to go home?
One thing I would like to point out here that I would like to, this morning, this Nahid Islam, one of those top protesters, he said, I quote him here, is we have decided that the interim government would be formed in which internationally renowned Nobel laureate Dr. Mohammed Yunus, who has wide acceptability, would be the chief advisor. So it's clear from this message that the students in Bangladesh, they are very much in favor of him, so they respect him, and also he has a very good reputation internationally. And the corruption charges you were talking about, he is facing it in his country, and he has, defended himself in many ways. So, and there are like international experts, they also think that those cases are politically motivated. And altogether, I think he's a very brilliant choice by the protesters, because at this moment, they are trying to put an interim government headed by Professor Yunus, and also there are, even now there has been discussion going on in the President Palace, where these student protesters are talking with the president, also with the military. So I think so far they have done a good move by choosing Professor Yunus as the chief advisor. And at the same time, Professor Yunus accepted it in a very short notice. This is also remarkable.
Tawfiq Khalidi, as one of Bangladesh's most senior journalists, could you share a few details of the minutes prior to Sheikh Hasina agreeing to get onto that helicopter, the first step towards exiting the country? Is it true that within half an hour after that, her palace, as it were, was stormed, and anything could have happened? Was it very tight, or was it controlled, her exit from Bangladesh?
It was it was closed, but it was also controlled. It was being controlled by the Bangladesh army. And I've been told by my sources in India that there have been some collaboration between the Indian army and the Bangladesh army when they were planning a safe exit for the outgoing prime minister. So I think the military planned it pretty well. Army in Bangladesh, because all the senior generals were loyal to Sheikh Hasina at the time, and then they ensured a safe exit for the prime minister, outgoing prime minister. She traveled to Bangladeshpotest quietly, handed her resignation letter to the president. That's what the president said, and the president accepted it, and she came back. A military helicopter waiting for her, and it flew out of her official home, which is called Ganabhavan, around that time.
Sure.
And no one actually knew where exactly she was headed for. Then I was told by my sources, diplomatic sources and other people, that either Kolkata or Agartala. Finally, it was learned that she went to Calcutta.
That plane flew right over Kolkata, didn't land. We were following the flight path quite closely indeed. Rumin Farhana, is there a sense that the protesters, or whoever it is that is in power, will now go after ministers and members of the army who were loyal, in a sense, to Sheikh Hasina? I do know that one of the key ministers was detained at Dhaka airport. So is there a sense that, you can use the word witch hunt, or there'd be some sort of action to arrest many leaders?
In last many years, in last 15 years, to be honest, the way they have dealt with the people of this country, the corruption, the human rights violation, that has to be dealt with, and they must be brought under justice. So for that reason, yes, some of them are arrested. Cases will be filed against them. charges will be filed and they will be tried in the proper court. But I don't support any vandalism. I don't support any arson. I don't support anyone to, take law in their own hands. Obviously, Bangladesh has its own judicial system, and everyone should be tried according to that system. And that's what I believe.
Pinak Chakravarti, is there a problem for India in having Sheikh Hasina in our country presently until such time as her asylum appeals go on? Or are we quite okay with her being here?
Oh, we are quite okay with her being here. She's been here before, if you know.
Yes, after 1975, yes.
Yeah. So it's quite okay. India provides refuge to many people. And I don't have to explain how many people we have taken in as refugees from different countries. So she's probably a refugee also in that sense.
Yeah.
Or an asylum seeker. And we have no problem. I think she'll be allowed to stay, make her own decision where she wants to go. And she's a friend after all. She was a friend, or she is a friend. And so why should we dump her?
Michael Kugelman, is there a possibility of China taking advantage of the unrest? That obviously has a profound geopolitical impact across the region, not least of all to India.
Well, I hope not. Yeah, I think China, like so many other countries, is very concerned about this this chaotic situation and about a number of destabilizing trends. And China has assets, it has equities in Bangladesh, for sure. I do think that China is one of the countries that stands to benefit geopolitically if there is a stable, peaceful transition of power, because I suspect that whatever the next government looks like, whenever it comes about, will want to work with China, of course, as the Sheikh Hasina government did. But no, I don't imagine that China would try to exploit things happening in Bangladesh now. One cannot rule anything out. We don't have much of a track record of China meddling in domestic politics in countries in the region, with some exceptions, Nepal being one of the exceptions. Just because it feels it doesn't need to, is typically there's multi-partisan support across the countries of South Asia for a good relationship with China. Obviously, some exceptions like India, but I don't know ultimately. But I think that China's main concern is not to meddle, but to ensure that its people in Bangladesh, that its investments and so on are going to be safe amid this very unsettled, volatile situation.
Arfatul Islam, we do know that Parliament in Bangladesh now has, in its present avatar, has ceased to function. The role of the president also coming into sharp scrutiny in terms of the road ahead. How soon, realistically, do you believe it will take before we can have elections in Bangladesh?
That's a very tough question to answer, basically, because this interim government, it needs time to organize a free, fair, and inclusive election. Even though Professor Yunus already said that he says that whoever come to the power should come through this election, a free, fair, and inclusive election. Something the Bangladeshi opposition parties have been asking for, especially the last three elections are not really free, fair, and inclusive. Rather, it was more of we have seen violence, vote rigging in favor of the ruling party, and also boycotts by the opposition. So to organize a free, fair, and inclusive election, it definitely needs time, but we have to see, if it is months or years. But so far, what I see that the protesters are very much in focus of forming an interim government, and the military is helping to make it possible as soon as possible.